Howdy, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Steve, and today's topic is going to be: is marriage good or bad for women? Now, I understand that most people have their own opinions about this, so I'm just going to be asking you to drop your views right down there in the comment section. So let's get started. Now, these days, feminists are starting to see marriage as being oppressive to women. Now, feminists, if you don't know, are the set of people who believe in feminism, and of course feminism is this belief of trying to fight for the rights of women and all of those things like that, equality and all of that, gender equality and some of all those other things like that. Actually, it's a lot more complicated than that, but I'm not going to be getting into the specifics of feminism right now. But again, they believe that it is oppressive to women, that marriage is not to the advantage of women, and that women become slaves of men in marriage, that it's an organization or an institution that seems to dominate women and make them slaves. For example, they would say that why is it that it is actually women that do most of the chores at home, like washing the dishes, cooking and all those things like that. They believe it is actually demeaning to women to believe that it is women who have to do the cooking. It is women who have to do the dishwashing. It is women who have to do the sweeping of the floors and those other things like that. They believe it is like the works of the patriarchy. Now, the patriarchy is this sort of boogeyman that they use to represent the society that is against women, that is society that is trying to subjugate women. Now, they also believe that women taking the names of their husband is also an example of the oppression that marriage fosters and the sort of oppression that marriage sort of forces on women. So these are the claims and the complaints that the women liberation movements have always been complaining about, especially when it comes to marriage. They have complaints about so many other things, but when it comes to marriage, it is very important for us to go really, really deep into what they're talking about and for us to sort of analyze and understand what these things are about and then sort of figure out a way to deal with them. So now, we have to also understand that some of these things they are claiming are the reasons. Just note, some of these things that they're claiming, that I already mentioned, are the reasons why this concept of housewife is now ridiculed, not only in the developed countries, but in Nigeria as well, in Africa, many places in Africa now. If you tend, or if there is a particular woman that would want to be a housewife, doesn't mean she's not educated or not, but you just wish to be a housewife to have time for your family, to have time to build a home for your husband, and to have time to take care of your children much more than a working mother might have the time to take care of her children, because she might have to drop them off at the daycare and all of those places. But you want to be a housewife to give all your attention and all your love to your children. It is now ridiculed as, yes, you are being controlled by your husband. You are not being allowed to be financially independent. And of course, there are some legitimate reasons for you to consider those things if you're a woman, because they would say, what if your husband abandons you? What if your husband starts becoming promiscuous and all those things like that, and he's not looking out for what is best for you? At least you should be able to have something that you would fall back on. So I understand some of those complaints and all of those things like that. I'm not trying to say that there is a definite answer to these things, but again, something that women always try to, feminists always try to claim is that they are trying to give women the choice, give women the opportunity to choose to go forward and to choose to do things for themselves. But that's exactly what I'm trying to do right here. I want women to be able to choose. If you're a woman and you would like to be a housewife, you should have the freedom to choose it. You should not be ridiculed. You should not be mocked for that choice. That's what I'm just trying to say. I'm not saying that that's the best choice for everyone, but if a woman wants to choose that choice, she should be allowed to choose it. She should not be oppressed. She should not be bullied into going into the workforce if she doesn't want to. And if her husband is ready to take care of her. I'm just trying to put that out there. Now, again, one other thing that we also have to realize, to know that marriage is actually very, very beneficial to women, apart from the religious grounds, because there are so many aspects in religion that makes marriage very, very beneficial to women. Like, it is the protection and so many other things like that, but I'm not going to be dwelling on that. I'm going to make this a little bit secular. And one thing that I'm going to be saying is that some of all these things you are complaining about today is because the society has gotten very, very prosperous. I mean, peace and prosperity all around the world is one of the reasons why women can be complaining about things like this, especially the feminist movement. I mean, it's not something that you would see in the ancient period, because then everything was very vicious. It was controlled by the strong, like it was the rule of the strong, not the rule of law back then. So the strong took things by force. It can even be observed even in the relations of countries back then. You didn't have to have done something against another country before they would attack you. If a country senses that you are weak, they are going to attack you. That's basically the way things ran until very recently, maybe past 100 years ago. And that was still one thing that Hitler still did in World War II. But I'm just trying to let you understand that back in the past, people that were stronger took over the possessions of people that were weaker. That was the way things ran. And who was going to be at a disadvantage during that period? If not women. Women were the weaker sex, and of course, they're still the weaker sex today. Now, this is not meant to be demeaning towards women, but I'm just trying to say that it made a lot of sense back then. Just try to follow me on this logic. It made a whole lot of sense back then to women for them to get married to a man. For them to get married to a man, yes, they are going to be trading in their sexuality and their fertility to the man, but of course, they're getting married to a man who was going to protect them from a whole lot of other men out there, vicious men who could rape them, who could take advantage of them without giving them any sort of commitment or giving them any sort of benefit that goes along with marriage. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, rationally speaking, it made a whole lot of sense that women would want to go into marriage back then. Just try to understand that. Now, before the woman would get into adulthood, she must have been protected by her father and the brothers. Let's say she has a brother. Now, fathers and brothers who are the men in the household. The men in the household to protect the weaker ones in the household, which of course is something very, very good. That's one of the reasons why men tend to be the ones who would go out to war to protect the children and the women at home. It's also one of the reasons why it is considered to be very, very bad for a country to attack another country and slaughter the women while you are attacking. Even though no matter what you do, the women and the children completely off limits. That's how it is considered to be. So now that's what I'm trying to say. It's the same logic that would makes a father and the brothers to protect their sisters. Now, when the sister gets into adulthood, she gets married in order to continue the protection. Apart from the aspect of love and some other things like that, which of course it tends to be very, very oblivious to feminists that women have their own choices too. And a lot of women actually fantasize about marriage. They really, really want to be in marriage. A lot of women have had dreams about their wedding days, even before they get engaged. A lot of women really, really, really love marriage. So even though you see it as oppressive as a feminist, a lot of women within the same camp of women really, really believe in marriage. That's one of the reasons why you would see that in marriages or in weddings, women tend to be the most excited about weddings. Now, it was the man that went to meet them to propose and all of those things like that, but they tend to be the most excited to go into marriage. Now, if marriage is traditionally and like generally speaking very oppressive towards women, it will be very, very illogical for them to be very excited about going into marriage. That's what I'm just trying to say. It will be very, very illogical and stupid for them to be excited about going into slavery. So that's what I'm just trying to say. It is very, very short-sighted for feminists to say that marriage is an oppressive institution. Now, I'm not trying to claim that there are not marriages that are abusive, that the husband might abuse the wife. Of course, back in the past too, it happened. But back then, the women still prefer the marriage to the predators out there, the sex predators out there, the other men out there who didn't care about them. So that's how it was. And even today, it is still preferable to women for them to be in the context of marriage than for them to be roaming about, if whether or not they are financially financially okay. It doesn't really matter. It gives them this sort of protection, this sort of confidence, this sort of shield against harm. That's one thing you just really need to understand. That's one of the reasons why a lot of women are interested in marriage. And of course, the love part of it, because women are so much interested in relationships. They love to interact with people. They love to have personal relationships with people, which of course is the good part of their nature. We really, really love that. Men are not all that into relationships and stuff like that. It is the complementary part of the personalities of women that complements the personalities of men that makes us to be united and makes the species to keep flourishing on the planet Earth. Anyway, I'll be talking to you later. Thank you very much for listening to me in this video, and make sure you follow us on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube, I should say, and follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter, it's all called Niger Unsealed on all platforms. I'll be seeing you guys next time. Bye.